Hey everybody, I'm headed to a hastily called press conference. I just got the press release 1 hour ago for 1:30 press conference. Apparently, the San Francisco Public Defender's Office has found another video that implicates San Francisco police in misconduct. It's going to be a doozy. Cab driver says that's a surprise.
I've been driving 22 years. You wouldn't believe what I see.
Oh, tell us what's going on, man. Oh boy. He's seen a lot in 22 years?
22 years.
Wow.
When I started driving, 89?
89.
Yeah.
So the San Francisco police really have a problem then?
Well, when they think they need money, I guess they pick on the cab drivers because they know we have to pay the tickets because we got the medallions and stuff.
Ah.
See,
yeah.
I've been pulled over up in the Tenderloin for making a too quick of a left turn. You ever heard of a ticket like that?
No, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Judge.
What?
They've given me quite a few tickets in many years, and I beat them every time.
We're not showing his face, folks.
Yeah,
We're going to keep him safe.
Please.
Man, oh man. Cab driver also told me he'd been beaten by the cops. I think he also says that he always takes, when he gets a ticket, he takes a jury trial. And he says, they say you'll see it in a year and they never show up.
And you hear from Mr. Santana that he is repeatedly telling them that they cannot go into the room without consent. Now let's go to the video showing the officers leaving the room. Now, as you saw, when the officers went into the room, they didn't have anything with them. They weren't carrying any bags, they weren't carrying any objects. And so what we'll see now is the officer leaving the room, and you can just barely see it there. He's got a bag. The officer there, Officer Guerrero. Now there's another video that shows the officer as he's walking the other way, and you can see even clearer the bag that he has there. And as you hear in just a moment, that's the bag that Mr. Guerrero. And I think there's one more that shows them as they're going down. This is probably the best video. Can we stop it right there? And you'll see it as you come here. There's distinctive white lettering on the side of that bag as you're going down the stairs. Now, there are other contradictions in the report. As Ms. Washington mentioned, in the police report, specifically says here that Mr. Mr. Santana was walking, looking into his hands, and that he was holding zip baggies with white objects inside. Can we go to the video where we can see Mr. Santana walking into the lobby? Right there. You actually see him coming from here. You can see his hands in his pockets. Can we just play that one more time? And of course, this is critical because they are able to use this, to claim that that's justification for arresting. Let's now go to the video of the individual who knocks on the door subsequent to the arrest. And what you're about to see is the officers are in the room. Mr. Santana is no longer there. And this is Mr. Morris, who's here. Nurse. And can we stop it right there just for a minute? All right. Okay. All it says in the police report is that Morris walked to the room and asked for Cuba, which is the nickname for Mr. Santana. And it says Sergeant Healy detained Morris and later released him. That's all it says in the police report. And we'll give you copies of the report. Show what happens here. Okay. Now, this arrest occurred at 5:07 and on December 30th. It was not until 3.5 hours later that Mr. Santana was asked to sign a consent form to search his apartment. In fact, as he has told his attorney, at the time he didn't have his reading glasses with him, and he was told by the officer that the form that he was signing would establish that there was nothing found incriminating in his apartment. It was not, which was not true because it was a consent search form. The items that were missing include an iPod, a bottle of tequila, 2 brand new Fender hats, the musical instrument Fender, 2 new Fender t-shirts, 3 new t-shirts, a roll of quarters, a number of DVD movies, and some other items that were missing from his room. And he has executed a declaration which states that. Now I'll ask Ms. Washington to introduce Mr. Santana just for a brief statement.
This is Fernando Santana. He's prepared to give you a statement as to what happened to him in this case.
Good afternoon. On December 30th of 2010, I had police officers steal items out of my room. They illegally went in. Basically, that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Adachi. Thank you, Ms. Washington, for helping me out. And thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Just let me ask you just for clarification on a couple of points. The bag that we see in the video, can you go back to the bag? Can you please tell folks who that bag belongs?
My friend loaned me that bag. That's my bag. It was in my room. It was empty. I used it to go to Arkansas to see my ex-wife. And
What was on the bag in terms of anything distinctive?
it's an Under Armour bag. It's the bag that's in the video. It's a bag that it can be the only bag that took my stuff out of the room, and included in there was some of my Christmas gifts.
Now, the bag that was, you can see here in the video, maybe if we can switch sides, you can come closer. Can you point to that bag?
That's my bag, Mr. Adachi.
And how do you know it's your bag?
The stripe, that's either Under Armour, it says, or whether it's a stripe. And my bag was missing. My room was locked when I got back. That's my bag.
Okay. Now, when you got back to your room and you noticed that there were items that were missing, including your bag, what did you do?
I reported it the next morning to my building manager. And
Did you take any official action?
not at that moment.
Okay, but subsequently, did you?
I filed a police report stating that my things were missing.
Okay.
And actually, this is one of the hats that were brand new. They had the tags on, $25 a piece. I got them for Christmas. And I never imagined it would be police officers that did it. I thought it was staff.
And when you saw this video, what did you think?
You saw me, sir. I started to cry. That's my bag. It was the answer to the puzzle. It was a police officer taking my bag out of my room.
Fernando, if I can jump in, what do you think of what has happened to you? And if you can step closer to the microphone.
What's happened to me? I've been through the ringer. I've spent 3 months accusing the staff at my building for stealing my property. And it wasn't them. It was the police officers from the Mission District. And it's just, I've been through the ringer, man. I've had a rough 3.5, 4 months.
Jeff, have you talked to the police yet, show them this video, and if so, when did you show it to them, and how have they responded so far?
You know, I have given a copy of the video and the reports to our new chief, Greg Sir, and you know, he said that he is looking into it, and I trust that he's doing it.
How long ago did you get it to them?
We gave it to him this morning.
And Jeff, what is your reaction to what you've just shown us? If you can step in front of the microphones.
It appears that the police were removing property that they had no right to from Mr. Santana's room. This is extremely alarming. There is no justification, and I really racked my mind as to why they would remove the bag. I thought, well, perhaps maybe they just borrowed it to remove items from the room. Yet when we looked at the evidence section in the police report, there was nothing there that would justify borrowing a bag in order to move items from the room. We checked into the property receipt. There's a property receipt that's issued both by the Sheriff's Department as well as the police when a person was arrested. If I was taken into custody and I had keys, you would see this listed both on the property slip from the Sheriff's Department when that was booked, and also from the police. And in both cases, there was no mention of any bag or other items that were taken from the room. We also obviously looked at the police report, and there was no mention of any items in the police report that would have been consistent with taking that bag. So, you know, without knowing more, what I can say is that there is absolutely no justification for that bag being taken out of that room by that police officer at that time. And certainly, if Mr. Santana had a own against these police officers, to pick against these police officers, he would not have filed a police report, believing that others may have taken his bag and his property. And it wasn't until the video was obtained and reviewed by Ms. Washington that the culprit of who took that bag was revealed.
Do you have the name?
Jackson.
Did you show this video to prosecutors, and did you ask the other officer who testified at the preliminary hearing about the bag being removed?
The judge that heard the preliminary hearing indicated that she did not need cross-examination. I had planned to cross-examine the officer with the hearing, and the officer that did appear at the hearing was Officer Guerrero. But the only testimony that was received at the hearing was direct testimony of Officer Guerrero without cross. And the judge indicated that the burden being on the prosecution not having met the burden of proof in the case, that she didn't feel that it was necessary for the defense to cross-examine the witness because she thought the outcome would be the same.
Did the officer testify about the bag in direct, or was it not asked, or had you given this video to prosecutors in any kind of informal way?
No, I had not given the video to prosecutors in any kind of informal way. My concern was that these officers would perjure themselves during the testimony to try to come up with an explanation for taking the bag. But I had viewed the evidence with the prosecutor, and I confirmed that there was no bag. This bag was not booked into evidence in any way. It was never mentioned in the police report in any way. And Officer Guerrero actually testified that he took the evidence that was seized in this case and placed it into an evidence bag, which is a manila envelope. And we viewed that in court, and that was identified by Officer Guerrero in court as the manner in which he seized the evidence and how it was taken away.
What further actions are you going to take since you see the video and the tape has been given to the South Top in San Francisco?
Well, Ms. Washington has filed a return of property motion to get the property back from the police department. And I've asked Partner Chief Sir to do what he can, because what Mr. Santana wants is simply his property returned. I'd briefly like to introduce Joseph Veras. Joseph, just come up here and stand. You are the individual that is depicted, looks like you knocked on the door and something happened to you. What happened to you after you knocked on the door and we saw you looking at the room? What happened?
There were 4 or 5 officers in there. They didn't identify themselves.
Stand right here.
And they
This one.
didn't identify themselves. And I asked where my friend was. He said he'd be back to come back later. And they were searching his room, lifting up the mattress and everything. And I asked, "What are you doing?" I thought it was a home invasion or something.
Could you see anything that would indicate that they were police officers?
There were no badges hanging out, nothing, no identification.
Did they tell you that they were police officers?
No. I thought there was just equipment guys going breaking into his room.
What happened after you encountered them and they came toward you?
They choked me. I turned around to leave, and they ran out of the room and grabbed me, choked me, cuffs, and searched me, and sat me down in the hallway while they ran my ID. What do you want to do with him? I mean, just let him go.
And were you injured as a result of this incident?
Yeah, my throat and ear is still, it hurts to breathe.
how were you choked?
Like this, they were asking me questions, but I couldn't answer because the pressure was so tight I couldn't open my mouth to answer their questions. Eventually.
What were they asking you?
Who are you? What are you doing here? And I told them just here's drop by seeing my friends. And that was it. They said, what do you do? Where do you live? Like, you know, stuff like that.
Jeff, what more would you like to see happen? You're asking for Fernando's property to be returned, but what else would you like to see happen? This is just the latest in a series of videos you've released.
Right. I mean, this is a continuation of what we've seen in comparing video evidence to police reports. And in this particular instance, you see, not only a police report which misstates facts, but omits critical facts. I mean, I don't know what the explanation is, again, for removing the bag from the room, but there's no mention of that anywhere in the police report. We have received a list of 6,900 cases from the District Attorney's Office, and we are now in the process of reviewing. These are cases involving the original 8 officers from the Henry Hotel. I have met with Mayor Lee and his staff, and he has agreed to work with our office to address not only these cases, but also the larger question of reform. Next week, we are hosting a summit where we will have many who are involved in law enforcement to discuss about this problem and what we can do to correct it. I'd like to now ask our Chief Attorney, Matt Gonzalez, to come up and just briefly describe the process that we will be involved in terms of the review of these cases, and also how this investigation will fit in with the investigation of the other cases.
Let me just, I want to really underscore the seriousness of this situation. We have heard from those accused of crimes for many years that there is a culture of lawlessness among some police officers in this city. And because of the technological advancements that allow for surveillance cameras to be placed in some of these residential hotels, for the first time we're getting to match police reports against what these cameras capture. And I want to report to you very clearly that what we're finding is that there is a very serious problem. Our office has yet to match up a single videotape surveillance camera with a police report and reach a conclusion that the police officers have honestly reported accounts that they allege have taken place in police reports. In other words, in every single instance where we've been able to match a video with a police report, we have found that police officers are committing perjury. I want to renew the request that we have previously made that the police chief institute a zero tolerance policy as it relates to police officers that commit perjury. Perjury is an offense punishable as a felony, and in the state prison, we don't think there should be any police officers who have been caught engaging in this kind of conduct who are allowed to remain on the police force. Also, we have previously raised the question that the police should be barred from using master keys to enter rooms. We did not see that particular example in the video today. However, we've seen another phenomena that we want to add to our growing concern of items, which is the use of consent forms after a search has taken place, as if that has any value in a court of law or in the legal proceedings that follow. And so we would urge the police chief to discontinue that practice. Jeff mentioned that we have a long list of police incident reports that have to be investigated. I want to emphasize that this list is not a list of incidents where we know that there is already a problem, but rather a list where police officers that are under scrutiny because they have been involved in previous incidents where their credibility has been questioned, that list is now available to us so that we can try to match up those arrests with specific videotape evidence that we've been able to obtain from residential hotels, and it will allow us to make contact with former clients who may have suffered convictions that they would not have otherwise suffered if they had been able to tell a judge that the police officers who swore under oath to certain conduct by criminally accused individuals should in fact be looked at with great scrutiny. And so we are embarking on a process to try to match those up. Let me just close by just reiterating, it's I think a great honor to serve the city of San Francisco as a police officer. Nobody is entitled to have that job, and nobody is entitled to abuse it. Those officers that engage in misconduct bring discredit to the entire police force and to police officers who do their job in an appropriate and lawful manner. And so we ask this chief to institute a policy that encourages and in fact forces police officers who engage in misconduct to find a different line of work. Okay? Thank you. Anything else? Any questions?
We know, I think the officers involved in this incident were involved in previous incidents involving misconduct.
These are not the officers that were involved in the Henry Hotel scandal. These are separate officers that come out of the Mission Station. The officers involved in the Henry Hotel scandal were from the Southern Station. These are from the Mission Station, even though this hotel is actually located in the Tenderloin. So the officers involved in this case are Ricardo Guerrero, officer, I believe his first name is Robert Sanchez, Sergeant Healy. We also have Officer Fagan, who wrote the police report and appears briefly on the video. And Officer Peter Richardson. Peter Richardson and Ricardo Guerrero are the individuals that had choked Mr. Marash. And Sergeant Kevin Healy and Officer Robert Sanchez, those are the individuals that illegally searched Mr. Marash.
Do you know why the Mission Station, why they were there in the Tenderloin?
Why they're in the Tenderloin?
Yeah, why they were...
I can only speculate why they're in the Tenderloin. This was December 30th, which was the day before New Year's Eve. So it's possible they were helping out. It's not clear from the police report why they were in the Tenderloin and why they were investigating anything in the Tenderloin.
Is this the same kind of unit that was involved, or these the undercover plainclothes units that are assigned normally to the individual stations? So they're doing narcotics.
These are narcotics officers, commonly known as narcs, that are assigned to Mission Station.
So are they the same sort of thing that the Southern Station officers, they do plainclothes enforcement of all kinds, including robberies and stuff?
I don't know if they do any type of robbery investigations. I know that Sergeant Kevin Healy has been involved in what's known as the robbery abatement team investigations. But generally, these officers, they testify regularly at preliminary hearings in narcotics cases.
But they are assigned to Mission Station, not to narcotics.
I do believe when they testify, they say they are assigned to the narcotics division at Mission Station. Is how they identify themselves.
Do you have any updates on the federal investigation?
I do not.
Mr. Gonzalez, do you feel like the plainclothes operation, that's a widespread thing? They shut down the Southern Station operation. They're saying it was just in that station, but clearly, there was an issue with the Southern Station.
Well, we're concerned because we're seeing that the scandal is growing and going into other stations. I can tell you that there are a lot of police officers that will tell you that there's certain assignments in the police department that should be short-term, because you leave an officer in a unit for too long, certain things start to happen. You know, vice squad, narcotics, things like that. And it's clear that these officers, from what the videotape shows, is that they are engaging in conduct that suggests that they have license not to be concerned about civil liberties, particularly the way we saw the bystander was choked and detained. There's really no justification for that whatsoever, and clearly none of the officers intervened to stop the other officers from doing that. And it's that kind of conduct that gives us concern.
So your view is that search was totally, there's no probable cause whatsoever to search that person, to hold them, detain them in any way?
That's right. If you read the police report and the way they indicate that they had justification, the videotape shows that that was not truthful.
The police report say that they're...
We're gonna stop now, but we'll keep answering questions individually.
Goes, what can be done about the police don't seem to be taking this seriously? What can be done?
We're hoping that the new police chief will institute some of the rules that I was talking about. You know, having a zero tolerance for perjury, which we think is obvious. But it may require legislative action by the Board of Supervisors and the mayor to prohibit consent forms being used after a search, to cure a defective search, and or ending the master key policy, things like that.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, for my audience, first, what's your name, by the way?
Joe.
Hey, Joe, what happened to you?
I was attacked at the hotel where the incident took place. And they searched me and just asked me, who am I, what am I doing here?
Just out of the blue, they came up like...
Yeah.
Wow.
They rushed out of the room. I knocked on my friend's door, and they were in there searching it.
And they had, you were saying you didn't know they were police? They just,
no, they
could be
had
like
no identification.
Wow.
Usually they didn't do anything till they grabbed me, then they took their badges out.
Well, they grabbed you how?
My throat, so choked me.
And this is all a surprise to you. You're just like going about your life, and all of a sudden, boom. And then they took your friend's bag?
Yes, that's what I hear.
What did they say to you? Did they give an explanation as to what they were doing, or what?
No.
They read you your rights or anything? Did they say they were police?
They just handcuffed me and choked me and sat me down in the hallway. And while they continued the search, and then they eventually asked, "What do you want to do with him?" They said, "Go ahead and release him. Let him go."
Just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't say I'm sorry. They didn't say.
They said it's good that you're such a good friend that you would take on 4 guys, 5 guys for your friend.
Take on?
You're a good friend.
So you weren't doing anything. They were trying to make it out like you were doing something?
Well, I kept pushing the door open. They were trying to keep me out, and they didn't have identification, so I thought it was a home invasion or something.
Right, you didn't know what was going on.
So I was going to protect my friend and his property.
Which is what anybody would do if 4 thugs were trying to come after him.
So then I turned around and backed off, and they came and rushed me and grabbed me. And then they took their badges out.
After all that?
Yeah, to identify themselves.
Did you say, hey, why didn't you, did you ask them why they didn't identify themselves before? Did you say, hey, where's your, anything like that?
No, there was no time to ask anything, they just rushed me.
Wow. Hey, thank you.
How to make it work. So I tried to show it to him earlier. I told him what it said, what it showed, and that's when he became aware that it was Officer Guerrero that had taken the bag and not anybody at the hotel.
If I may for my viewers, can you explain how you came to become involved in this case and go from there, basically?
I became involved in this case in that I was assigned the case. I'm assigned to Department 11 at the Hall of Justice, and he was arraigned on my day, and I was assigned to represent Mr. Santana at that time.
And when did you discover that there was this problem with the video that brought us here today?
I believe that I received the video somewhere around March, but I can't say specifically the date.
And is this the first time that you dealt with this issue regarding San Francisco police and for want of a better term, violations of this type?
No, in fact, I was involved in a case involving the last scandal with the Southern Station officers, and there was a videotape in that case, and I was interviewed for that by a couple of stations.
Is it always the pattern that police don't identify themselves? I was talking to the gentleman outside, and he said they just came at him as if they were going to attack him. You know,
Right.
It was a home invasion, he described.
Right. Well, the officers almost always say in the police reports that they had their stars displayed on their outermost clothing, but we've yet to find a video that actually shows them doing that. The only person that at any point had their star on their outermost clothing was Sergeant Healy, but he did not have it on his outermost clothing the entire time. It appears when he walked in, he did not have it. In fact, there's a segment of the video where he shows his star to the front lady at the front desk and then puts it away and zips it up in his jacket.
If others have situations like this, how do they contact you?
I do believe we have a hotline number right now. You'd have to see Tamara to get the exact number, but we do have a hotline set up for people that have these issues and want to report it to us. They were for personal use, and that's noted in the police report.
So
as
he
well.
had what, cocaine or?
Crack cocaine based.
Marijuana.
Marijuana, but he was not charged with that.
So I'm just trying to make sure I understand it. How long did Guerrero take the stand for?
Officer Guerrero was on the stand for roughly an hour, I believe.
And you didn't want to you wanted to cross-examine him, or the judge said you didn't need to?
I wanted to, but the judge said I did not need to, because she indicated that the burden of proof was on the prosecution and it had not been met. The three parties, the judge, myself, and the district attorney, had a meeting in chambers during a break, because the judge said, we're going to take a break to see if we can get Officer Sanchez to come in. We took a break, and it was clear that Officer Sanchez was not going to come in and was not going to testify. So we spoke with the judge, and she told the DA that they had problems, and she didn't believe that the burden of proof had been met, and that it was not unnecessary for the defense to cross-examine the witness if we were just going to spend a lot of time to get to the same place we were already in.
Did the judge know about the videotape?
No, no one knew about the videotape, because my concern, having dealt with these officers before, is that if the officer knew about the videotape, he would perjure himself. And I wanted to make it very clear and have his testimony come out first before he was aware of the videotape.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When did you get a hold of the videotape, and did you guys just seek it at the hotel, or did someone know it was available? Or?
We sought it from the hotel, and I received a copy of it in advance of the hearing. I don't remember the exact date. I believe sometime in March, and we were able to get a hearing date in May.
And you're not entitled under reciprocal discovery to share it at that point?
I'm not entitled, or I'm not obligated?
You mean you're not obligated?
No, because it's impeachment material. Any material that's impeachment material is not discoverable under the law.
So were you intending to play it and show it to him, or were you?
I was.
But you didn't have that opportunity, and the judge didn't know that you were.
The judge did not know that. No.
I mean, do you believe this is Brady material, just his testimony alone, given what you know about the videotape at this point?
I do believe it's Brady material, and I would hope that the district attorney's office would turn it over in subsequent cases.
Have you given the video to the DA's office now?
I don't know if Mr. Adachi has provided the video to the district attorney's office. I know the police department certainly has been provided.
When did they get it today, right?
That's correct. That's what Mr. Adachi informed me. Yes.
I mean, have you been able to determine this unit, how many other arrests they've been responsible for, whether any of the, I mean, are you guys doing your own back checking to see, going back, given that now you know who these officers are and the statements they make, and missing property to see anything that matches these guys?
We do know that there are other cases where there are allegations that Officer Guerrero has taken property. We are investigating those at this point. We're hoping that the district attorney, now that they're aware of this, it's really unfortunate because there are other cases in which Officer Guerrero has been captured on video committing misconduct. And
when did that happen?
From what I understand, I believe May of last year, there was a hearing in which another attorney, a private attorney, someone who's not part of this office, and I believe there's a current complaint being made before the Office of Citizens Complaints regarding this, but there was a recording that establishes Officer Guerrero committing misconduct. It's not in the police report, and then he testified and disavowed the conduct. In that case, he was made aware of the video before he took the stand, which is partially why I was concerned that if I made him aware of the video in advance of him taking the stand, then all of a sudden he would have amnesia. And even in my case, he did testify several times, I don't remember, and the judge said that was part of her decision, that he seems like he doesn't remember a whole lot.
Given
What was
the
the
number,
property
if I may,
sorry?
given the number of cases like this that have popped up, has the office considered just making a list of the officers and making that a list public and saying these are the officers that have the most violations or alleged violations?
Well, it's hard to say who has the most violations, but in speaking with all of you today, we're hoping that this information becomes public and reaches as many people as possible. My personal concern is for people that end up on juries and end up believing these individuals, thinking that they're all above board and they're honest, law-abiding officers, and in fact, they're not. So my hope is that people who are potential jurors in cases will listen to police officer testimony, certainly if it involves these specific officers, and bring that into their mindset when they hear cases, and not simply believe that because an officer is giving sworn testimony that it's truthful testimony.
What about people that may have gone to jail?
We are looking into that, and we're going to look into that and file necessary motions to try to address any convictions that have occurred based on these officers, and whether it was just based on their police reports and they pled believing that they couldn't defend themselves against false allegations of the officers, or people who were convicted at jury trial. We're going to look into that and try to address all of that to the extent that we can under the law.
What was taken when the first allegation against Guerrero?
Which one? The one
that there was the OCC complaint.
That I don't believe was an allegation of a theft. From what I understand, it was an allegation of it was a Fourth Amendment violation where the police report said he saw something. The video shows that he simply walks up to an individual and detains them without seeing anything. Is my understanding of that.
So whatever he claims to have seen as the basis for the arrest,
correct,
is revealed as not being present.
Correct, and that's one of the most common things that occurs is the officers know the Fourth Amendment law, and they know that, particularly in drug cases, that the biggest defense that a defendant has when he or she has been arrested in a drug case is that the item was illegally seized. And so the officers usually state that they saw something that would give them reasonable suspicion to detain the person or probable cause to arrest the person, and that's how they discovered whatever item of contraband. And so the most common things that we've seen in the videos that the officers lie about is the reasonable suspicion or probable cause. In this case, it's a little bit different because not only is there an allegation that Mr. Santana consented, and that's how they get into the room, but then you see he's taking items out that don't make it into evidence and are not documented anywhere, and Mr. Santana is saying we're actually stolen from his room.
And the consent happened 3 hours afterwards.
The form was signed 3 hours afterwards, yes. Well, even the police report says that it was signed afterwards. They don't say the exact time, from my recollection, but they do say it was signed afterwards. They say that they did not have a copy of the form with them at the scene, so they said that they provided it to him at the station.
Verbal consent beforehand.
That's what they said, yes.
And when he filed the police report, did he ever hear anything about that from the police department, about his property, whether they were going to investigate it, who was going to do it, how it might be done?
He did not receive any follow-up from the police department after he made the report.
Who did he make it with?
He made it with the Tenderloin station.
And at this point, police have not, even though Greg Sir didn't say that he's going to try to find his property for him, or does he act like he didn't know that happened, or he was totally unaware of all this, right?
Well, I'm sure that the police chief did not know what happened, but I don't know if he indicated he was going to find the property. I'm sure that the property is long gone. I don't imagine that Officer Guerrero would keep it, but if he did, then we hope that it's returned to Mr. Santana.
How long has Mr. Guerrero been on the force? Do you know?
Officer Guerrero testified at the preliminary hearing he's been on the force for 17 years.
And Sanchez, do you know how long he's been on the force?
I do not.
Guerrero
So
has
he-
always been narc.
I don't know that he's always been a narc. I imagine he was on foot patrol for some point earlier on in his career, but he did testify he has many, many years of experience as a narcotics officer. And
So-
Why didn't Officer Sanchez come to the hearing? Do you know?
I don't know specifically. I know that the district attorney represented to the judge that he was validly subpoenaed and that he was not answering phone calls asking him to come to court.
But Sanchez's role in this, I'm unclear. Was he involved in the search of the room, but was he involved in the subduing the fellow outside, or whatever you call what they did? That was his role. And he also supposedly saw your client with his hands outstretched. Is that
Right.
the issue?
He was with them the entire time, but Officer Guerrero testified at the hearing that he was relying on what Officer Sanchez told him that he saw in Mr. Santana's hands. At a motion to suppress hearing, that's not admissible testimony. They would need Officer Sanchez to come in and say that he in fact saw that. Because the law has a concern that if one officer is able to relay what another officer said, that might be invented. So you need the actual officer to come in and say, yes, this is what I saw, to kind of link that up. But that's why he was necessary, and he did not show up. And according to the district attorney, he was subpoenaed.
Clearly, this seems to, like you said, you don't know how long this has been going on.
That's
This is
correct.
a cover-up. Could go back through many mayors, administrations, and DAs. If they're found out, what happens at that point? Will those people be mentioned?
The people who
Heading
had
those officers?
those officers, well, my hope is the appropriate action is taken against the officers and that they're taken off the street, because we don't need officers who are stealing people's belongings and lying about it on the street. Then they're supposed to be protecting our citizens. So my hope is that they're removed from the force. I would hope that they'd be prosecuted the same way that any other citizen would be prosecuted if they went into a room and stole belongings that belonged to someone else. That's a serious felony under the California Penal Code, and I would hope they'd be prosecuted. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem very common for police officers to be prosecuted for crimes they commit while they're on duty.
One more
Given
question.
past-
Federal Bureau of Investigation, have they been notified?
I do not know if they've been notified.
Given past statements from the police department, is it reasonable to believe they'll take this issue as seriously as any of the others, if you know?
I really hope they do. This is a different type of allegation with a theft allegation, so I hope they do take it seriously. I know that they did keep the other officers off the streets. My understanding is that they have not been suspended, but they are not in a position to deal with the public. So since they did take some action with the last situation, my hope is that they will take this seriously and that they will deal with it appropriately.
You guys will be reviewing thousands of cases connected to these officers, or hundreds? What's the, I understand I heard 6,000, but that's like total number of cases.
I don't know exactly how many cases have dealt with these officers. These officers are very common officers at the Hall of Justice. You see Officer Guerrero on the first floor several times a week. So they're very common characters at the Hall of Justice. So they've been involved in many, many, many cases. But the district attorney's office would have the specific numbers in the police department.
Thank you. Thank you so much.